My name's Caleb Danner. I was 10 when I ruined my mother's date by having a seizure at the dinner table. She told me she wished I'd never been born. I haven't spoken since. She picked me up from school in a dress that didn't look like something you wore around your own kid. I'd had a migraine all day. Lights made my eyes throb. But she'd already told me in the car, "Don't screw this up. This one's a doctor. His name was Brent, expensive haircut, boat shoes in November." When I told him I was 10, he smiled and said, "That's a great age, old enough to know better." Romanello's was loud that night, candlelight flickering, wine glasses clinking. Brent ordered a bottle of something I wasn't allowed to smell. My mother laughed like she hadn't heard a joke in years. I asked if I could sit closer to the wall. The light was making my head swim. She ignored me. Brent was talking about property values. By the time the entrees came, I knew it was coming. That static behind my eyes, the pressure under my ribs, my body always knew before my mouth could say it. I dropped my fork. My hand knocked over the glass. The last thing I remember was my mother saying my name like it tasted bad. They told me I seized in the aisle, convulsed into a table leg, split my lip, bit down on my tongue hard enough to scar. My mother didn't ride in the ambulance. Brent did. Said it was the least he could do. At the hospital, when they stabilized me, she walked in 30 minutes later with her heels still on and said, "You're lucky he didn't leave when he had the chance." I didn't respond. The nurse asked her to step out so they could run tests. She leaned in, touched my forehead like she thought someone might be watching, and whispered, "I swear to God, Caleb, you do this to get attention. And if you cost me another good man, I'll make you wish you'd stayed in that seizure." Then she left. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't say a word. Not that night. Not after. Not ever again. By the time I got home, my room was different. The posters were gone. My blanket smelled like bleach. I found the red dress in the hamper, lipstick still smeared along the collar. Nobody asked why I stopped talking. At school, they put me in observation classes, gave me cards with facial expressions on them like I was 5. Kids called me a freak. I wrote everything down on lined index cards. Teachers praised my handwriting. The school psychologist told my mother I needed therapy. She said, "We can't afford all that for drama." So I stopped trying. One day, I found a brochure about epilepsy in her trash. It was folded inside out, stained with coffee, and torn along the spine. She'd highlighted one line, "Seizures are unpredictable but not always disabling," and underlined it twice. Like that made it my fault. I stopped calling her mom in my head that year. She became Diana, the woman who raised me. Sometimes I'd watch her sit on the phone and cry to her sister about how exhausting it was to raise a child who couldn't even say thank you. She told people I was on the spectrum, said I lashed out, that I broke things when I got upset. I didn't. I just learned how to listen very carefully, how to watch everything without blinking, how to write down names, dates, receipts. By 12, I understood what silence really was. Not absence of sound, but the presence of something bigger, choice. And I had made mine. She told me once, years later, that Brent had moved to Tampa. "Could have been your stepdad," she said, "but you scared him off." I didn't reply. I was 15 then. She was drunk. I wrote the word Tampa in my notebook that night and circled it 3 times. That was the year she told her insurance provider that I'd become aggressive, that she feared for her safety. That's why she needed full coverage. I found the documents in a drawer beneath the sink. She signed my name, misspelled it. I haven't spoken in 20 years, but I remember everything. The restaurant, the carpet under my cheek, the look on her face when I fell, the red dress, and the moment she said it, "I wish you'd never been born." "You're so lucky he doesn't talk," she'd say with a laugh. They thought it was a joke. It wasn't. I never said another word after that night. They said selective mutism, then PTSD, then a behavioral freeze response. But none of the labels felt right. I just didn't speak. Not to classmates, not to teachers, not even in sleep, according to the tests they ran on me at South Valley Children's Hospital. I stayed overnight for 3 days. They wired my scalp, recorded my eye movements, tested my oxygen intake during sleep cycles. Number 1 ever asked what I remembered. That was the first lesson. Silence protects the one who doesn't deserve it. Diana, she stopped being mom. Somewhere around age 11, leaned into the performance harder after the hospital visit. She printed brochures about seizure response, volunteered for an epilepsy awareness walk and brought her hairdresser instead of me, posted photos to Facebook with captions like, "Proud to support my brave little fighter." I was cropped out of half of them. At home, she told people I was uncommunicative. To them, I was the challenge, the strain. To me, she was just a liar in lipstick who kept wine glasses in the freezer and used my condition like a coupon. By 7th grade, I was placed in a specialized academic track, not because I couldn't learn, but because I wouldn't answer. That's what they said in the paperwork. Does not engage. Refuses verbal participation. So they gave me packets and worksheets. I finished most of them by lunch. The principal said my test scores defied expectations. Diana said it was just a phase. He's only smart on paper, she told him. I used to listen through vents. That's how I learned things. Like how she took out a loan in my name when I was 14, forged the signature on a co-signed student card. She used it to buy a new washing machine and a purse she wore once. I paid it off 4 years later in a lump sum, after I interned for a tax attorney who believed in my spreadsheet fluency. He was the first adult who looked at me like I was more than a whisper in the room. Mr. Faulkner. He ran the forensic auditing program at New Ridge Community College and gave a talk at our high school. I stayed after. He handed me a flyer. I didn't speak, just stared at the numbers on the back of his presentation and copied them down in my notebook. 2 months later, he offered me a part-time data entry job at his firm. Said I had a gift for catching what most people miss. I didn't smile. I just showed up on time. Diana never noticed I was leaving the house early on Saturdays. She thought I was in detention. Once, she told a friend on speakerphone, "At least he's quiet. Makes him easier to manage." You know how loud these boys can get, always breaking things. I had never broken a single thing in that house. Not once. But she had broken a dish against the wall after a bad phone call with her ex and said later I'd startled her, that she must have knocked it over, reacting to him walking in behind her. He wasn't home. I had it written down in a notebook, the date, the time, the name of the caller. By 16, I had records, timelines, statements, screenshots. I didn't know what I would do with them, only that it felt right to document it, like collecting evidence for a trial I couldn't yet attend. I got a full ride to university, forensic accounting, minor in criminal informatics. My GPA was a 3.98. Diana didn't come to orientation, said she couldn't handle all the standing around. She used my acceptance letter in a post about raising a child with complex needs. Got nearly 300 likes. I read every comment. Not one mentioned my name. I left home at 18 with 2 duffel bags and a battered laptop. She didn't hug me. She handed me a grocery list, said, "If you're gonna live alone, learn how to keep a fridge stocked." I walked out while she was still reading it out loud. I never gave her my dorm address, never answered a call, never wrote her name again. Not in any journal, not in any form. Just D, like a variable in a formula I'd already solved. I moved through college like a shadow with a locked mouth and a perfect record. I memorized fraud indicators by week 2, knew how to catch inconsistencies in medical reimbursements by month 3, had a paid consulting contract before sophomore year. When Diana filed her disability claim 3 years later, I already knew the codes she used. She lied, said she had a degenerative back injury from lifting her violent son during an episode. She wasn't talking about my childhood seizures. She was rewriting them. I didn't correct her, didn't respond, didn't even blink when I saw the claim filed through a friend's office at Consolidated Mutual, where I was doing contract review on the back end. The name didn't hit me first. The diagnosis did. Then the falsified signature. Then the dates. Dates I knew. Because I still had the hospital record from the night she told me I shouldn't have been born. I highlighted the application, saved it to a secure folder, and waited. She posted a photo the next day. Caption said, "Pain is invisible. Strength is choosing to keep going. Our disability warrior." She'd bought a new car that month. Told friends the lawsuit payout changed her life. She had no idea what I'd seen. No idea I'd already been contacted by an internal fraud investigator named Maya, asking if I could consult on a case where multiple falsified medical reimbursements had been flagged by state audit. No idea I was already cross-checking the forms. No idea what came next. I hadn't spoken in 20 years, but I'd been watching. And now she'd put the spotlight on herself. All I had to do was step into it. She always said silence was easier to manage. She had no idea how loud it would get when I finally broke it. Fraud always starts with something small. A claim here, a payment there, a story that doesn't feel worth challenging. Her first move was a lumbar strain. Said she pulled a muscle hauling groceries up the stairs. She submitted a work injury report, even though she hadn't had a job in 4 years. Her doctor, if he was even real, cleared her for long-term disability inside of a week. She wore a brace to the pharmacy, took photos in a wheelchair at a public health awareness event, told the clerk at CVS she was fighting for her life. 3 weeks later, she posted a selfie at a rooftop bar downtown with the caption, "Pain can't stop this soul. No cane, no wheelchair, high heels." I saw all of it. She didn't know I followed her burner Instagram account, the one she used to post the pictures she didn't want her church group to see. She didn't know I had access to the back-end database of the insurance processor she'd just defrauded. My name was on the contract, not publicly. They listed me as External Compliance Consultant, Forensic Claims Reviewer. It paid quarterly. But for this case, I was working for free. Maya called me 2 weeks after the case flagged a second-tier review. "Would you be open to consulting on something personal?" she asked. She didn't know. "Not yet." "I'm in," I wrote back. She sent me the file. Medical claim history, documentation trail, emergency room reports, deposition notes from the claimant. The first name stopped me. Not because it shocked me, because I'd expected it. Diana Danner, claimant, 51 years old, alleges chronic pain and mobility impairment due to trauma sustained while lifting a dependent minor son during violent epileptic episodes between 2002 and 2009. I stared at that sentence, not because of the lie, but because of the precision. She'd tied the timeline directly to me. The form included copies of school reports, old medical documentation, redacted IEP plans from the special education coordinator at North Park Elementary. She had fabricated a handwritten note, supposedly from our family doctor, confirming she'd suffered acute vertebral stress due to consistent physical caregiving of an unpredictable juvenile epileptic. I'd met that doctor once. He retired when I was 12. She dated the note 2011. He died in 2008. She forged the signature and misspelled the middle name. I flagged the file in red, attached a memo to Maya. Multiple red flags. Claim contains inconsistencies in documented dates. Supporting evidence appears forged. Handwriting inconsistent across forms. Strong likelihood of intentional misrepresentation. Recommend in-depth review, original source document audit, and claimant deposition request. That was my official note. What I didn't say was that I'd known every one of those documents from memory. The IEP form she submitted? It had been replaced with an updated version. My sophomore year, I remembered scanning it for my academic file. The seizure logs? Rewritten and sanitized. She made them sound violent. Made it sound like I was uncontrollable. Like she'd carried me down a hallway during a grand mal episode while bruising her spine. I had the original ER record. It stated clearly, patient presented post-tonic clonic event. No physical intervention reported by guardian. Child transported by EMT signed. Paramedic Unit 206. Officer Brandon Hall. Diana wasn't careless. She was used to being unchallenged. People like her always are. A week later, Maya asked if I'd sit in for the deposition. She's requested accommodation due to mobility restrictions. We're doing it via video. Of course, I typed. I entered the conference room 10 minutes early, reviewed the claim history again. $148,200 approved across 7 disbursements, an additional $46,000 pending if the fraud case didn't hold. It would. She entered the video call with a neck pillow, an ice pack, and a limp. Her voice was low and weary. Said the pain never stopped. Said it started when Caleb began lashing out. I wrote the quote down word for word. Maya asked if she could clarify what lashing out meant. She said, hitting, scratching, screaming. I couldn't control him. I used to lock myself in the laundry room and cry. I paused. She'd always locked the laundry room door, but it had been from the outside. She faked a coughing fit when asked for documentation of ER visits. Maya didn't flinch. "Can you provide the name of the physician who treated you for these injuries?" Diana smiled weakly. "Dr. Ronald Eckstein. Lovely man. Still practicing in Brentwood, I believe." I pulled up the death certificate, dated 2008, filed under the Social Security Death Index, uploaded it to the shared folder. Maya stopped the call, said they'd need to reschedule for full legal review. Diana nodded, confused. Tried to make a joke about, maybe this isn't even worth the payout anymore. Maya didn't laugh. Later that afternoon, I sent her a final memo, attached the original paramedic report, scanned photos of the hospital discharge summary from 2003, a notarized copy of Dr. Eckstein's passing, timeline overlap analysis, redacted social media images showing Diana dancing, drinking, hiking. None of them showed the brace she wore during her deposition. I ended the report with a single line. Claimant has a history of manipulating narratives using dependent's medical condition, recommending witness familiar with claimant's prior conduct to offer corroboration. Maya asked, "You mean you?" I typed, "Yes." She called me. I picked up. Didn't speak. She paused. "I didn't know she was your mother." I nodded into the phone, then hung up. The next morning, the subpoena arrived. I hadn't spoken in 20 years, but I was going to court, to testify, for the prosecution, against the woman who told me the worst thing a mother can say. She said I made her life unbearable. Then she used that lie to pay her bills. Now I get to show everyone the truth, using her own handwriting. The courthouse was smaller than I expected. Old brick. A single security checkpoint. No cameras. No spectacle, which made it perfect. My testimony had been moved to an evidentiary hearing. No jury yet. No media. Just the attorneys. The judge and her. I arrived early. They asked if I wanted water. I shook my head. They asked if I needed to rehearse. I handed them a document instead. A 7-page deposition of factual findings with sourced references, chain of custody records, and 3 notarized exhibits. "Speak when you're ready," Maya told me. "I'll know when," I typed. Diana entered 10 minutes late. Dark sunglasses, back brace. No limp this time. Her attorney wheeled in a file box. She whispered something about spinal damage from a fall. The room smelled like perfume and menthol. She didn't look at me. She didn't recognize me. Not yet. The judge entered. Everyone stood. I stayed still, then rose. The bailiff asked me to state my name for the record. I took the microphone in both hands, paused. The air in the room thinned. Then I said it. Caleb Danner. The silence after was not quiet. It was electric, like someone had unplugged every lie in the room. Diana turned her head. She blinked once, tilted slightly forward, like her balance had shifted. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The attorney leaned in, confused. I kept going. I am the primary subject referenced in all 7 of the claims submitted by the defendant to Consolidated Mutual and affiliates. I was diagnosed with epilepsy at age 6. My seizures were treated with lamotrigine, then Keppra. I have no history of aggression. I was never violent. There is no medical record of my mother lifting, restraining, or being injured while caring for me. Maya slid the hospital reports forward. The defense attorney picked one up. His face shifted, slightly. I continued. My mother used outdated forms, forged multiple signatures, referenced physicians who were deceased, submitted statements using my name that I never gave. I held up a photo, a scan of her deposition signature, placed beside her false application. I've reviewed over 400 fraud cases in the past 2 years. I know what a lie looks like. The judge leaned forward. You haven't spoken in 2 decades, Mr. Danner. Why now? I turned to him, not to Diana, not to the lawyer, just him. Because this is the first time I've been asked the truth in front of someone who wants to hear it. I returned to my seat. No theatrics, no anger, just quiet. Diana tried to speak, mumbled something about trauma, caregiving, sacrifices. Your Honor, her lawyer interrupted, we would like to request a postponement. My client's condition. Maya stood. Your Honor, we have video of the defendant dancing at a wedding 3 days ago. No brace, no limp. We have the original medical provider's death certificate. We have screenshots of the Facebook post where she bragged about the payout. She handed it to the clerk. Caption read, "One win at a time. Some of us don't stay broken." The judge didn't raise his voice. He just nodded. All parties will reconvene Monday. Perjury, medical fraud, and false disability benefits are being considered as felony charges. The gavel struck once. The room emptied like someone had cut the gravity. Deanna finally looked at me. I'm your mother, she whispered. Her voice cracked, almost human. You're really doing this? I stood, picked up my notebook, paused at the door. Then I turned. You told me you wished I hadn't been born. Now you know what it's like when I show up anyway. Then I walked out. She built a life out of false claims. All I did was testify and let the evidence speak louder than she ever let me. The story made the local paper 2 days later. Single mother, accused of multi-year fraud scheme involving son's disability. My name wasn't in the headline, just hers. But the people who needed to know, knew. Her friends from the church group stopped commenting on her posts. Her boyfriend, a real estate agent with a fake Porsche and 2 mortgages, blocked her number. The yoga studio she tagged for the last 7 months refunded her membership and removed her testimonial from the website. She deleted every photo from her burner Instagram account, but not before they were archived, watermarked, and submitted to the court's evidentiary portal. Monday came. She showed up in a plain black dress, no makeup, no brace this time, just sunglasses and silence. She didn't make eye contact with anyone. She didn't speak during the hearing. Her attorney entered a plea of not guilty on her behalf, but her body said otherwise. I didn't sit in the courtroom that day. I watched the live stream from an administrative viewing room 1 floor up. Maya sat beside me, arms crossed. She's going to lose everything, she said. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. By Thursday, she'd been formally charged with fraudulent disability claims, forgery of medical documents, intentional misrepresentation for financial gain, wire fraud across state lines. Her house, the one she bought with the settlement money, was seized under federal asset forfeiture. Her accounts were frozen. That night she called me. I hadn't changed my number. I just never answered. The voicemail came in at 12:14 a.m. Caleb, please. I didn't know it would go this far. You have to understand I was doing what I had to do. I needed help. You never said anything. How was I supposed to know you hated me this much? She paused, breathed. I'm still your mother. She hung up. I archived the message. Didn't save it. Didn't delete it. Just filed it under a folder named Statements. A week later, the prosecutor filed a motion requesting my full testimony for sentencing impact. I declined. The judge asked why. I submitted one sentence. Let her speak for herself. The court accepted the request for silent sentencing. Diana took the stand to plead for leniency. She cried, mentioned raising me as a single mother, said she did her best, said her back hurt all the time now, really hurt, said she loved me, said I never once said I loved her back. The judge listened, then read from the perjury transcripts, then the medical documents, then the photo captions. She was sentenced to 18 months of federal time, followed by 5 years of supervised release and a lifetime ban on receiving disability benefits. She left the courtroom in handcuffs, still crying. I stayed in the viewing room until the screen went black. Then I walked outside. It was raining, not hard, just enough to clean the sidewalk. I stopped by the park on my way home, the one near the house where she'd raised me. The swing set was rusted now. Fence had chipped paint, but the oak tree was still there. I stood under it for a minute, then turned away. She used to say I'd never understand consequences, that one day I'd screw something up and no one would be there to clean it for me. She was right about one thing. Nobody cleaned it for her either. She wanted the world to believe I was broken. She just didn't expect I'd learn how to break quietly and rebuild in silence. After sentencing, I took a week off. Not because I needed rest, but because I didn't know what to do with stillness anymore. For 20 years, my silence had been a wall. Now it felt like a room with no door. I didn't answer calls, didn't open mail. I deleted all her voicemails except one. Not the apology, not the crying. The one where she told someone she wished I hadn't been born. She didn't know I was in the hallway. She didn't know I'd recorded it. She never did find out how much I'd kept. The payout from the insurance firm came in. Standard whistleblower protocol. $22,000 after taxes and fees. I donated all of it to a foundation that funds speech therapy for trauma survivors. Anonymous contribution. No letter, no story, just a note. For the ones who were told to be quiet. I moved to a smaller place. 1 bedroom, minimal furniture, no windows facing the street. The kind of space where no one can knock unless you let them. Some mornings I made coffee and forgot to drink it. Some nights I walked for hours with no destination. The silence was louder now, but not heavier, just real. One afternoon I got an email. Subject line, Speaking Engagement, Childhood Trauma and Resilience. They wanted me to give a lecture at a university panel. Said they'd heard about the case. Said it could inspire survivors. I closed the message. Let it sit for 3 days. Then replied, Thank you. But some survivors don't need to inspire, some just need to breathe. I kept writing, though. I still had notebooks full of court records, timelines, incident logs. I don't know why I couldn't throw them away. Maybe because I needed the reminder that none of it was imagined, that what happened wasn't a phase or a story I made up in my head, that the silence had a beginning and an end. A few months later, I visited the old neighborhood. The house was still standing. Different color now. New owners. Swing set was gone, but the sidewalk still had that crack outside the front gate where I tripped once in 3rd grade. Skinned my knee. Walked back inside and got yelled at for ruining my pants. I stood there for a while, then left. Didn't take a photo. Didn't touch the fence. Just walked away like it had never been mine. Sometimes people ask if I've forgiven her. I tell them I didn't need to. Forgiveness implies she mattered enough to hold something. She doesn't. Not anymore. I speak now. Not often. Not loudly. But when I do, people listen. Because they can tell I mean it. I never changed my number. She called once after her release. Blocked number. No message. Just rang. Once. That was enough. Last week I opened my last notebook. The one I'd kept since that night at Romanello's. The red dress. The seizure. The ambulance she didn't ride in. I tore out the page where she said it. I wish you'd never been born. I burned it in the sink. Didn't watch it curl, didn't film it, just lit it, let it go, and ran the faucet until the last ember was gone. I still don't like loud places. Still wear noise-canceling headphones on the train. Still write more than I speak, but I don't carry her anymore. That's what closure is. Not forgetting, not forgiving, just putting it down and leaving it behind. She made my silence the reason for her suffering. I made it the reason I healed. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.